Ammonia fuming is a traditional way to stain arts and crafts furniture made of oak. In a nutshell, you expose the raw wood to highly concentrated ammonia fumes, and the fumes react with the tannins in the oak to darken it. That's how I stained this Roycroft-style taboret project in our April 2022 issue. The effect of this chemical reaction is that it turns the raw wood to this greenish gray color in about 24 to 48 hours. Now, if you want to learn how the fuming process works, a number of years ago I made a video about how to do it, and you can see that at woodworkersjournal.com. But what I want to talk about here is something to keep in mind when choosing oak lumber for a project you plan on fuming. And that is, you have to watch out for sapwood. White oak sapwood doesn't contain much tannin, and the ammonia won't react with it like it does with the heartwood. Here's what I mean. Here, I intentionally glued up a panel that I knew had sapwood in it, so you could see what it looks like after you fume it. You can see the sapwood running right along the glue line here, and it's over on this board edge here. Now the problem is, when you apply your final top coat, that sapwood sticks out like a sore thumb. Now, some people might not mind this, but I think sapwood along a glue line just calls attention to itself, and it looks like I made a mistake. And if you agree with me, there are 3 ways to avoid the problem. And the first is just recognize that sapwood is going to be an issue when you're fuming white oak. And this mismatch of color is not going to go away. It's a permanent part of the panel. Second, be on the lookout for sapwood. Sometimes it's really obvious, like the wide band of sapwood on this piece. And you can also see it on the end grain. Now, I've had this piece of lumber in my shop for almost 20 years, and as the wood has aged and darkened, the sapwood has really come to stand out. But when I first planed it, this wouldn't have been nearly so obvious. Now, if your boards are still in the rough or the faces are really dirty, it can be harder to tell where the sapwood is. But here's a clue. Look for streaks along the edges of the boards like these. There's a pretty good chance that those are sapwood, but I won't know for sure until I take these rough surfaces off. And third, if you're just not sure about whether or not a piece of white oak has sapwood in it, here's an easy tip. Just flood the surface of the wood with mineral spirits. Wetting the wood will often make the color shift between the sapwood and the heartwood much more obvious. Then mark it before the mineral spirits dries, so you'll know where it is before it blends in again. Now obviously you can't change sapwood into heartwood, so you've got a judgment call to make. You can keep it and incorporate it into your design. You can try to hide it on panels that don't show very much, like a back panel, or the back of a shelf, or the parts to a drawer box. Or you can cut it away, as I had to do for several of the boards I used on my taboret. Now another option is to try to hide the sapwood by brushing stain over the areas using a brush that's mostly dry, so you're getting mostly stained pigment. Or you can use a wood glaze that's made for evening out contrasts and blending in colors. But either of these approaches is going to require some skill to do well, and you might even end up covering up some of the wood grain, which on quarter sawn white oak is exactly what you want to see. They say that forewarned is forearmed, and that certainly applies to dealing with sapwood when you're fuming white oak. But if you're aware of the situation, you can plan for it, and that can prevent some unwanted surprises and wasted wood. I hope this video helps when the time comes. I'm Chris Marshall with Woodworker's Journal magazine in Rockler, and thanks for watching.